It was a faint hum of the fluorescent lights that always made Jaden uneasy in doctors' offices. Not the needles, not the charts. Just that constant, sterile buzz that reminded him of being vulnerable under cold hands and cooler glances. But Dr. Marcus Hale was different. Jaden had been seeing him for a little over a year now, routine checkups, nothing serious. Yet every visit felt less clinical and more personal. It wasn't just the way Marcus remembered details from previous appointments, like the exact city Jaden grew up in, or how he took his coffee. It was the way he looked at him, like he saw more than just a patient. Or maybe Jaden just wanted to believe that. He stepped into the exam room, clutching his phone a little too tightly, a nervous habit he hadn't broken since high school. The nurse had already taken his vitals and left him alone with a paper gown folded on the table. Jaden didn't sit. He stared at the closed door, half hoping Dr. Hale had been delayed, half hoping he'd walk in sooner. The door clicked open. "Jaden," Marcus said, smiling as he stepped in, his white coat swinging slightly with his pace. "Still punctual to a fault, I see." Jaden gave a small smile. Some things never change. Marcus scanned the chart in his hand briefly, then looked up. His eyes were a cool gray, sharp but not unkind. "Vitals look good. Just a quick physical today. Yeah? Any concerns before we begin?" Jaden hesitated. "Just some stiffness in my shoulders. Been working late hours." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Stress does that. Let's take a look." He pulled the curtain around the exam table, closed with a gentle SHFF. The space immediately felt more enclosed, more private. Jaden sat down on the edge of the table, the paper crinkling beneath him, bare from the waist up. Marcus washed his hands, then approached slowly. His fingers pressed lightly against Jaden's neck, then moved down to his shoulders. "Any tenderness here?" Jaden tensed instinctively. "A little." Marcus's hands moved with practiced care, firm, deliberate. But there was something else. The touch lingered just a beat too long. His fingertips trailed just along the edge of Jaden's collarbone. Jaden's pulse quickened, and he hated how aware he was of every point of contact. "Relax," Marcus said softly. That word settled over Jaden like a warm blanket. Too familiar, too intimate in that moment. He closed his eyes for a breath, trying to slow the rush in his chest. The air between them felt thick now, like it was charged with something unspoken. Jaden wasn't sure if it was real or something he'd imagined into existence. But it was there. He opened his eyes. Marcus was watching him, still professional, but his expression had shifted. Softer, curious. Jaden spoke, though he didn't know why. "You ever wonder if lines blur in this kind of setting?" Marcus paused. He didn't step back, didn't break contact. "I think lines are meant to keep things simple. But life isn't always simple." Jaden swallowed hard. His body was warm despite the chill in the room. "And when things aren't simple?" Marcus looked at him then, not as a doctor, just as a man. "Then we ask ourselves what matters more, the rule or the reason it exists." Jaden didn't respond. He couldn't. The moment hung there, suspended like a breath that didn't want to be exhaled. Finally, Marcus pulled his hands back and stepped away, clearing his throat as if that would dissolve the tension. "Well," he said, tone neutral again, no major concerns. "But take breaks from your desk every few hours. Let those shoulders breathe." Jaden nodded, unsure if he was disappointed or relieved. He dressed in silence, every movement mechanical. When he stood, Marcus opened the curtain with one swift motion and held the door. As Jaden stepped out, Marcus said, "Same time next week." "Yeah," Jaden replied, not meeting his eyes. "Same time." He walked down the hallway, heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure what had just happened, or if anything had happened at all. But as he stepped into the summer heat outside, he knew one thing for certain. He was already looking forward to next week. Jaden told himself it was nothing. He repeated it like a prayer, driving home, brushing his teeth, lying in bed beside Eli as soft breaths filled the dark. It was just tension, a moment misunderstood. He hadn't crossed any lines. Not really. But all week, Jaden found himself returning to it. The way Marcus had said relax. The way his eyes had lingered. There was no denying that something unspoken had flickered between them, like a spark paused quietly under a closed door. And now, it was all Jaden could think about. He didn't tell Eli about the follow-up appointment. Didn't mention it when he stepped out early Friday morning, buttoning his shirt with too much care and spraying cologne he rarely used. The guilt whispered at the back of his mind, but it never quite took shape. Instead, anticipation gnawed at his chest. The clinic was quieter this time, no waiting room noise, no rushed footsteps. The nurse greeted him with a smile and left him in exam room 3. A knock came minutes later. "It's me," Marcus called gently before entering. He wore a charcoal gray shirt beneath his coat today, sleeves rolled slightly, collar open. The contrast of it, the sharp lines of professionalism softened just enough, sent a shiver through Jaden's spine. No chart this time. Jaden asked, trying to keep his voice even. "No need. I remember," Marcus said, closing the door behind him. "You mentioned stiffness last week. Thought we could do a quick therapeutic assessment. If that's all right with you." Jaden nodded. "Yeah, sure." Marcus motioned to the table. "Shirt off again." It wasn't said with any suggestion. Still, Jaden's fingers hesitated at the hem before tugging the fabric over his head. He sat silently, feeling exposed in more ways than one. Marcus stepped closer, hands warm as they touched his back and shoulders. "Still tight here?" "Yeah," Jaden murmured. "Desk work's killing me." "You ever get body work done?" "Massage therapy." Jaden shook his head. "Well," Marcus said softly, "consider this a small preview." His hands moved deliberately now, not rushed, not clinical. Thumbs circled the knots beneath Jaden's shoulder blades, pressing in just enough to pull a quiet exhale from his lips. There was something sacred about the silence between them. It wasn't awkward. It was charged. "Is that okay?" Marcus asked, voice low, close to Jaden's ear. Jaden's breath caught. "Yeah, more than okay." He didn't mean to say it like that. He didn't mean for it to sound so intimate. But Marcus didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned forward just slightly. His hands paused. His voice dropped into something almost fragile. "Jaden, are we pretending there's nothing here?" Jaden turned his head, just enough to catch Marcus's gaze over his shoulder. "I've been trying to pretend." Marcus's fingers brushed his collarbone, not professionally this time, just softly, deliberately. "We shouldn't," Jaden whispered, though he didn't move. His skin burned beneath the touch. "No," Marcus said, "we probably shouldn't." But he didn't stop either. The distance between them collapsed in a single breath. No kiss, no rush, just a silent acknowledgement of what they both wanted, had been wanting, beneath layers of rules and roles. It wasn't lust. It was something slower, heavier, a moment built from months of glances, quiet understanding, subtle electricity. Jaden closed his eyes. For a moment, time folded in on itself. Then the phone on the wall buzzed, breaking the air like glass. Marcus pulled back, too quickly. His hand dropped. He stepped away as if nothing had happened. "Sorry," he said. His voice was back to neutral. Controlled. That was unprofessional. I let it go too far. Jaden stood slowly, reaching for his shirt. The silence between them was no longer sacred. It was swollen with tension. "I didn't stop you," Jaden said, quietly. "I should have." Marcus looked at him then, not angry, not ashamed, just quietly sad. "We're only human, Jaden." Jaden nodded. He pulled on his shirt without meeting Marcus's eyes. At the door, Marcus offered, "If you'd prefer a different physician next time." Jaden paused. "No, I'll come back." But as he walked down the same hallway, his step slower than last week, Jaden knew something had changed. The line they both tiptoed around had now been crossed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but just enough to make everything after feel different. and he wasn't sure if he wanted to go back. Jaden hadn't returned to the clinic since that morning. 2 weeks had passed, and still he replayed everything. Marcus's voice, the warmth of his hand, the silence that bloomed like fire between them. It was maddening, and worse than the guilt was the ache of wanting more. Eli had noticed. Jaden knew he had. The subtle shifts in tone, the way Eli watched him across the dinner table with kind but searching eyes. Jaden's answers were shorter lately, his laughter less certain. He hated how present Marcus felt, even in his absence. One evening, Eli made pasta, Jaden's favorite. They sat across from each other, the glow of the overhead light casting soft shadows on Eli's face. Jaden pushed food around on his plate. Eli finally spoke. "Is something going on?" Jaden looked up, startled by the gentleness in his voice. "You've been elsewhere," Eli continued, "like you're standing next to me but not really here." Jaden opened his mouth, then closed it again. How could he explain something he didn't fully understand himself? That it wasn't just physical, that it wasn't even about Marcus, not entirely. It was about feeling seen in a way he hadn't realized he was missing. "I've just been tired," Jaden said. Eli nodded, not pushing, but his eyes said what his mouth didn't. "I know there's more. I just hope you'll tell me when you're ready." Later that night, Jaden lay beside Eli in bed, eyes open to the ceiling. He could feel Eli's warmth beside him, his steady breath, the quiet loyalty in the space they shared. And still, his mind drifted to Marcus's hands, to the locked gaze, to what could have happened if the phone hadn't rung. The next morning, Jaden walked to the clinic. He hadn't made an appointment. The receptionist looked up, surprised. "Jaden, did you need to see Dr. Hale?" Jaden hesitated. "No, I just need to drop something off." She smiled. "You can head back. He's free for a few minutes." Jaden moved down the hallway. The floor's quieter than he remembered. He reached the door and knocked once. Marcus looked up from his desk, surprised but not shocked. "Jaden!" Jaden stepped in and closed the door gently behind him. "I won't stay long," he said. "I just needed to say something." Marcus stood, searching his face. "Okay." Jaden exhaled. "Whatever that was, whatever we almost did, I can't carry it forward. I care about someone, and I cross the line just thinking about you the way I did." Marcus didn't interrupt. He just listened. Jaden's voice softened. "You didn't force anything. It wasn't predatory, but it was still a choice. And I don't want to keep making choices that confuse what I really want." Marcus stepped closer but kept distance. "You're not the only one who's been thinking about it. But I respect your decision. I really do." Jaden nodded. "You said something the last time about being human. I think I've been hiding behind that excuse. But I'm ready to stop." A silence settled between them again. This time, it felt cleaner. Forgiving. "Take care of yourself," Marcus said finally. "And tell Eli is lucky." Jaden smiled faintly. "I'm the lucky one." He walked out without looking back. That night, Jaden returned home just before sunset. Eli was on the couch, headphones in, flipping through a magazine. Jaden sat down beside him and gently pulled the headphones away. "Hey," he said softly. Eli toned. "You okay?" Jaden looked at him, really looked, at the quiet patience, the steadiness that had been there all along. "I wasn't," Jaden admitted, "but I'm getting there." Eli didn't ask for more. He simply reached over and laced their fingers together. As the sky outside faded from orange to purple, Jaden leaned into the silence, this time not to escape it, but to feel everything it held. The past couldn't be erased. The tension with Marcus wouldn't vanish like steam. But here, with Eli's hand in his, Jaden chose presence. The lines had been blurred, but now he was ready to redraw them.